Hey everyone, I'm in the bathroom today, and what I'm going to be talking about today is how I remove the subfloor and sill, the rotted sill in this bathroom. So, as I talked about before, we had some rot over here behind the toilet. That was the main portion of the rot. So it was the subfloor that was rotted, and also the sill. Again, this is the sill here. That's the sill that runs underneath the wall. So that portion in this area over here was rotted. So what I did was, the first thing I had to do to get all the rot out of here was to cut the sill out. And my main issue was going to be these pipes here, or this one pipe, this copper pipe. Because getting a saw or a circular saw of any kind in there was just going to be kind of nearly impossible. So I remembered I had one of these saws here. A saw here in the garage. And the blade is removable. So what I did was I essentially removed the blade, slipped this over the pipe, and then started making my cut after I attached the blade back on there, obviously. Made my cut partway through, and then the top bar here, this black bar, hit the pipe. So I wasn't able to cut any deeper than that. And I had to actually go then to this saw here. It came with a miter box that I had in the garage. And I made my cut all the way through to the floor. And actually I'll back up one step. Before I could even do that though, I had to cut some of the subfloor in the kitchen out. There was a 1/4 inch plywood subfloor on top of the 5/8 plywood in the kitchen. I had to cut some of that out so that I could make my cut all the way through to the floor. So you can see that's kind of cut back a little bit in the kitchen. So I got that cut out, made that as straight as I could. Then on this side, did the same thing on this side. It cut between these two studs here. I cut there, and then when I cut there, actually the portion of the sill that was underneath this one stud here kind of broke apart because the screws or the nails that were nailed through that portion of the sill fractured the wood, so that came out really easily. Most of this over here, this section of the sill was in pieces because of the pipes. They had cut pieces to fit around the pipe, so those came out really easily too. So once I got all the pieces out that I could, anything that was attached to the wall studs, I just took a sawzall and cut through the nails underneath the wall studs, and that I was able to remove all the rest of the sill out from underneath these wall studs, and I was done pretty much then. And then of course I had to get to the subfloor next. So for the subfloor, I wanted to make sure I made square cuts. I didn't want to have any uneven cuts, so it would make my replacement plywood drop into place fairly easily. So what I did was I took this outside wall here, it's an exterior wall, and I figured that wall is probably pretty straight. So what I did, I found this section over here was really in pretty bad shape. This section of the subfloor, there was a lot of rat droppings that had accumulated there, so it was really pretty just nasty. And actually this is the board over here. It's pretty gross. So what I did was I looked for the floor joists first of all, just throughout this floor here. I established where the floor joists were underneath the subfloor. So I found this first joist here. That was really easy to find because, as you can take a look there, if you get close in here, you notice there's a seam there where two pieces of plywood are adjoining. So that was the first indicator, obviously, that we have potentially have a joist running underneath there, and sure enough, there's a joist there. Plus, there's nails kind of all along here. There are nails. So that was a good indicator that I had a joist there. Then I found the next joist right over here, and that was really easy to find because where the tub drain was, I could really see it. I mean, I could easily see right there that there was a joist. And then I just measured 16 inches over from there into the kitchen, and looked for the nails, and of course found some nails for the plywood in the kitchen, and that established that third joist. So from there, I just kind of went along. I took a measurement from this wall here, and what I wanted to do is have a cut running between these two studs here. I want to have a cut running between there so I could get a saw of some kind through there. Wasn't quite sure what kind of saw yet, but I figured I could find one that I could get through there. So again, I measured 5 inches from this wall to the first cut here, did the same thing a little farther up, and established a straight line going into the kitchen, to the next joist in the kitchen. And then from that joist in the kitchen, I measured from there all the way over to in between here, and kind of made a mark there. So I used a framing square to make sure that it was squared up there. And then I just kind of measured back this way to the first joist here, which is right here. And so you got kind of an L shape if you step back and look at this here. So my next dilemma was, how was I going to get between these two studs, the stud and the pipe there, and then the two studs here. So one thing I did, I tried to roto-zip using an X wheel on the roto-zip, and that didn't work too well. It really bogged down, and it really wasn't really kind of made for this kind of activity. So I took that back to to Lowe's, because first of all, it gave up on me, it died on me. And I ended up getting one of these. This is the VersaCut by Rockwell. And it's a little mini circular saw, and it has a plunging capability on it. So you can actually plunge into the middle of a section of wood. So it was a great tool. I was really surprised by how well it worked. And it's also got this laser on the front here too, so you can kind of guide yourself as you're cutting. So I was able to get through here. Actually, I came in from the other side, in between these two studs here, from the other side. I got part way through there, and then I had to come into this side of the bathroom and cut going that direction. And so I left about 1 inch of uncut material, or 1.5 inches. So what I did was I took a hammer and a chisel and just cut out the rest of the way to meet the two cuts coming from either direction. So on this side it was a lot easier because I had a lot more room there. There was no pipe there. So I was actually able to get the VersaCut all the way through from there over to here. And then I just cut from this side and met there. So that worked really well. And I used the VersaCut also to cut along this joist here. And again, like I said, it does plunge cuts. And on the side here, you can set the depth. I don't know if you can see that really well, but like for the plywood is 5/8, so I went a little deeper than 5/8 and went to about 3/4 of an inch and set the depth for that, and it really did a great job of cutting all the way through. I was really surprised by how well this thing works. It's got a couple little things I don't like about it, or I got used to actually. This is a release here, so it releases the blade, and then this is the trigger. But sometimes if you pull down on the release, you can accidentally hit the trigger, and so it'll kick back on you if you're not careful. So I had to get used to that, using that a couple times, but it really worked really well. So got all the plywood out, and I got my pieces ready to go in. So in the next video, I'm going to talk about how I am going to be installing the plywood, and so we'll see you in the next video.